Hey everybody, and welcome to a new series where I'm going to basically go over each set of Magic the Gathering that I have played through personally, uh, and I will basically go over my top 5 cards from that set. This will mostly be a nostalgic thing, cards that I have memories of, or I played a lot of, or I have a certain thing to say about it, or whatever. It's not going to just be the most powerful cards in the set. It's going to be cards that have something that brings something to me as a player, and that I have experienced over the years of playing Magic. And that's why we're going to start the series off with the very first set that I ever really got involved in Magic with, Champions. Now there was a couple other, there were a couple of sets that I played a lot. Like, even though Champions was the first set was the newest set when I started playing, I kind of messed around with Legion and Onslaught a lot because I really like the Goblins in those sets. So, this is the first set I ever played, but I used to mix and match a lot of older cards from those sets. But without further ado, let's get into the list. First up at number 5 is Cradle Distraction. Whenever this card came out, or whenever the set came out, this was like one of the big money cards. This was like a very sought after card. I think it went for like $20-$30, and then the foil was like just crazy expensive. Which back then, $20-$30 was a lot for a Magic card. I mean, for a brand new Magic card, especially to my 12-year-old self. So we opened a couple of these over time, and we always were really excited about it. I remember one day I watched one of my friends open one of these, trade it into the store owner to get some more packs. He opened another one, plus some other rares, traded that in to get some more packs. I think he eventually opened like a foil one out of the packs he kept recycling, and then he eventually hit rock bottom and opened a bunch of jank, and the store owner didn't want to give any more packs. There's a moral in that. There's a moral to that story there. But yes, this is an interesting card, and I didn't really ever play it. But it was just a card that I remember was very sought after, and I just remember how much it was flipped around the tables and traded among players at the time when I first started playing. It's also like one of the first cards that I know this effect's been around for a while, and it comes back in different forms. But this is the first time I remember really seeing a effect like this, like the remove all copies of a card kind of effect. At number 4 we have Master Yazamashi, however you say that. I know I butchered it. But this is I always thought this was a really interesting card. First of all, I like the art design is very cool. I like the fact that it's a human shaman, something you don't see all that often. And I really like the flavor and the feel of the shamans in this set, especially the red human shamans. They had snake shamans too, but they weren't as interesting to me. I just really like the way, I really like the way a lot of these cards were drawn for whatever reason. And this is just another example of that. Plus, he's a legendary creature, which didn't really mean nothing to me at the time, but over the years I've come to respect it because he makes a commander and all that and stuff like that. And this set was known for its legendary creatures, but I really like the stats. It's a 4/4 for 5. I used to really like. I really enjoy these like big kind of creatures that can deal damage. His pinging ability allows him to remove creatures from the game, which again it wasn't something I was really like focused on. Like I really realized was a good thing, but now that I look back at it, it's a pretty interesting ability. Even within the set itself, it gets rid of a lot of the soul shift creatures that are in the set. Number 3 is Ghostly Prison. Again, a really awesome art design on this card. I don't know why they always go with the other artwork for the newer versions. I love this one. This one's amazing. It looks great. I love the color scheme in it and just the designs of like a guy trapped in a transparent prison. That's exactly what the card is. It fits it so much more better flavor-wise, I feel like. Also, it's just a really strong card. It's this enchantment that just drops down and makes everything harder for your opponent. It really punishes people that are playing like either aggressive strategies where they have to attack with lots of creatures. It just punishes people that are missing land drops and stuff like that. And I have really bad experiences with this card because I had a friend that used to play like a deck with this and Winter's Orb and Dust Drinker, and he just made it so that none of our lands ever untapped, and we always had to pay like all our resources just to attack with like one thing, and I hated my life because of it, especially as I played Goblin Bidding back then. So yeah, this card. Next up we have Kiki GG the Mither Breaker. I love this card, man. I've already said a couple times in this video that I really like goblins, and back when I first started playing, that's what I was really focused around and what I was drawn to. So of course I always liked this card. And it was a little different than the goblins I was used to. The goblins in Legion and Onslaught were different art style. They were different flavor wise. The goblins in Champions block were more like spiritual, like magical kind of goblins. They did a lot more with magic and stuff. They weren't like the traditional medieval armor wearing, knife wielding, goblins that just attack, that just shank people and stuff. It was a little bit different, and I always liked that because I did welcome the difference in this different goblin style. Now I never really got to play this card a lot because it was so expensive at the time, and it was just rare, and I didn't have the kind of trades to trade for it, and I never seemed to open one, so I just never really got to play with this card until years later when it was like recirculated like in Modern Masters or whatever. And then it had a stupid art. Again, I don't know why they go with that artwork for this card every time they reprint it, because I think this artwork is so much nicer looking. I understand that you can make the argument that the artwork for this and Ghostly Prison are too intertwined with the Japanese culture, theme of the Champions block, and they didn't want to go with that. But who cares? It still looks way more awesome in my opinion. But yeah, Kiki GG, he makes copies of things, and you can go infinite with combos. I mean, we've done it many times in Modern, and it's just a really strong card. Before we reveal my number one, I want to do a few honorable mentions. First off, we have Lava Spike. Is that if it's yeah, Lava Spike? I love this card, man. I fell in love with Burn so quickly when I started playing Magic. It just basically damage straight to the face. You don't even have to block, you can't get blocked. Don't have to attack. You just straight up hit them in the face. I love that. Coming from Yu-Gi-Oh, I wasn't used to like cards that could deal damage to a creature in a player. That was so of a weird concept to me. This card doesn't actually do that. This card is straight up just burn to the face, but it's so efficient. 1 mana for 3 damage. At the time, I really liked Lightning Bolt, and this was the closest thing that you could get to Lightning Bolt that really wasn't Lightning Bolt, that was like in circulation at the time. Because I mean, you had Chain Lightning and stuff, but my noobish shelf didn't really know about that, or didn't know that it existed at the time. So this was really nice. Next up, we have Maluku, the Cloud Emitter. I really enjoyed the art direction and the kind of like concept of this creature type, Moonfolk. It was something that we hadn't seen before, and it was very interesting. I love him from a creative standpoint. And he just these elegant, creatures that like live like in the moonlight or in the like river waterfalls and stuff, and they're just very like in a world full of samurais and ninjas and barbarians and stuff. They were just a very high society kind of race of people, and I really enjoyed it. I also like the mechanic of them, like having these powerful abilities that require you to return lands to your hand. It kind of balanced out because returning lands was usually kind of a bad thing. It would be like it slowed you down, it put you behind. But with stuff like Maluku, it was also really strong because you could get 1/1 flying tokens that could easily dominate the board after a while. And then with cards like Simic Assault, which was reprinted around the same time or whatever, you could really do a lot of damage with this card. And then we have the School at Water's Edge, which is the land that goes with Maluku and all of her people, and in the contents of the storyline. Really cool visual land card here. It's also legendary land, which is something you don't see as often, especially like when I first started playing. Even though I played in a legendary heavy set anyway. But this is a really interesting card because it basically allows you to untap a legendary permanent, which can be very powerful. This is always one of the more playable, or in my opinion, more playable of the legendary land cycle that affect the legendary permanents. And I have a lot of fond memories of playing this because my first commander deck or EDH deck I ever played was Mariki Bent, I believe. It's like a Esper colored creature that can steal other people's creatures, but they can do it as long as they're tapped, and you can untap it, but you have to untap it through a different way to destroy the creature. I used to use this card to untap her, destroy a creature, steal another creature. Fun times. I remember I used to play this burn spell a lot, even though it's not really that good. It's more of a limited card. It's in constructed play, it's pretty terrible. 3 mana to do 3 damage is not the best efficiency for your bang or bang for your buck or whatever. But it does remove the creature from the game, which can be useful. But there are better things that do that, I think. And I just really love the art in this card, though. It's so badass looking. I love the way the fire looks in the guy's hands. I love the way the guy's face paint looks, war paint, whatever. The whole card just looks really awesome. The shading, the colors, just a badass card. So, funny story with this card. One of the first decks I ever had in the game of Magic was a precon. It was a snake precon from Champions block that played a bunch of snake creatures and whatever. And it had that one guy that gave all your snakes +1/+1 and warriors. The snake warriors got to do something. Then it had the snake shaman card or whatever. It was kind of split between like shaman snakes and warrior snakes, which is weird. But anyway, this card was in that deck, and I used to play it. And when I first started playing Magic, me and my cousin, we were the main people that played each other for the longest time, just like kitchen table Magic at the house. And we didn't really understand how the mana abilities work on cards. We, for some reason, interpreted tap add a green to your mana pool as go get a forest out of your freaking deck and put it on the battlefield. So we used to use these cards to accelerate our mana like crazy, like our lands, which is not how it works. And we were very disappointed when we found out that's not how it works. Now, without further ado, my #1 pick for my favorite, most nostalgic cards from Champions is Kokusho the Even Star. Such an awesome card, badass art. They actually outdid themselves with the artwork for like what Masters, I think, but this one still looks really nice. Big giant body, 5/5 flyer for 6 isn't nothing to laugh at. It's already pretty solid. But then that go into the graveyard trigger is just really powerful. 5 damage and gain 5 life. That's like a 10-point swing, you know, if you count the life gain and everything. And that can just put you really far ahead. And I used to really like this card. I like this one in Yosei a lot, the which is the white dragon, you know, part of the cycle. And I used to have this very silly deck that wasn't very good, but I was very I loved it. It was one of the first decks I really kind of made myself. It was called Kokusho Control, is what I called it. And it was basically a white-black deck that focused around this and the other dragon and putting them in the graveyard, getting them back from the graveyard, putting them back in the graveyard, using the triggers over and over. It was a silly deck. You had stuff like Girl's Visions and other things. I think Dragonstorm was in there too. I think I splashed red or something. Or no, like that came later. But yeah, when Dragonstorm came out, like in the Time Spiral, Time Shifted cards, this card became so crazy because you could all of a sudden you could just go get 4 copies of it, put it on the battlefield. With the legendary trigger, they all die at the same time, and your opponent just loses 20 life and you gain 20 life. That usually would win the game for you. So yeah, it was a crazy card. Alright folks, that's all for my top 5 nostalgic cards of Champions. Let me know in the comments what are some cards that you are nostalgic of from this set. Let me know in the comments, and I appreciate you guys watching the video, checking it out, and stay tuned for more videos of this nature and other types of content. See ya.